In the week gone by, there's been a significant policy announcement which has the potential to bring down the pollution in our cities substantially. The Union Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change announced rules for management of construction and demolition waste. And believe it or not, these are the first ever rules in the country for an activity that generates enormous waste which degrades both land and the environment. A CSE analysis has estimated that as much as 530 million tons of construction and demolition waste is generated annually, and this was actually a 2013 report, so that figure should have gone up. This is either dumped in city landfills or in open spaces, water bodies or even floodplains. Today in our first discussion, we focus on how can Indian cities effectively implement these Maiden rules. Welcome everyone to the Realty Debate. My panel today, Mahesh Babu, Managing Director, IL&FS Environment Infrastructure and Services Limited. Also with us, Anup Matthew, Senior Vice President and Business Head, Godrej Construction. With me here in the Delhi studio, Shashank Bishnoi, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, that's IIT Delhi. And Avikal Somvanshi, Program Officer, Sustainable Buildings and Habitat Program, Center for Science and Environment. We will refer to that as CSE because a lot of data from there is very interesting. Okay, before I go on to my panelists, here's what's happening today, the present situation in the country. Now, 25% of all solid waste generated in the country is construction waste. Currently, about 530 million tons, which is generated, we've said that before, contributes to almost 20% of the air pollution in cities. Today, new construction exceeding 2 lakh square feet needs environmental clearance, but demolition does not. And the waste produced per square meter of demolition is 10 times that generated during construction. If you look at just the three largest cities, Delhi, as of now, most of the C&D waste produced in Delhi ends up being dumped along the Yamuna or in the ridge area. It's usually mixed with municipal solid waste, making it difficult to recycle. Mumbai, what's happening there? It produces nearly 2,500 tons of construction and demolition waste per day. BMC had proposed setting up of construction debris recycling center, but the plan still remains on paper. Now, Bangalore in 2014, Bangalore municipal body framed rules for disposal of construction waste, but so far, no rules for recycling of waste have been formulated. All right, let me ask the first question to Shashank. Shashank, now 70% of the building stock in India is yet to come up. I mean, this is something which is extremely important, these rules. Have they come too late, or are you saying better late than never?
Well, I have to say it is better late than never. We have to look at the positive side. At least these rules are there now. There's a lot of construction still to be done in India. There are a lot of people who still don't have homes to live in. There's a lot of infrastructure that still has to be built. But that does not mean that we don't start implementing these rules today. There's a lot of damage that we can do by not following these kind of rules. And they're not even rules. They're basic, it's common sense to follow these rules because it can not only help you in protecting the environment that you live in, it can also save you a lot of money in construction.
Avikal, we will keep showing the rules as we have this discussion. We've got actually 10 of these highlights from the construction demolition rules which were announced by the Environment Minister. But tell me, anything which caught your attention, which of these were critical, or what is your own assessment of those 10 big highlights?
All the 10 highlights are actually very critical. Actually, everything written in the document is very critical because we never had any document like this before in the country. This is the first time. So, India is officially recognizing construction and demolition waste as a problem and also as a resource which needs to be utilized. So, everything is important, and specifically, the rules are very nicely laid out. They have laid out responsibility of everybody involved in this system, from generators to municipal bodies to government bodies to even standard making agencies and even recyclers. So everybody knows now what their responsibility is and what they need to do.
All right, so let me just go through them once. New rules will cover projects generating C&D, which is construction and demolition waste, up to 20 tons a day or 300 tons per project every month, effectively covering the bulk of waste generating projects in the country. Now, when builders, developers, these could be private, these could be government, anybody building will have to submit building plans for clearance. They will also have to submit a comprehensive plan detailing how will they manage C&D waste generated in their particular project. In case of any damage caused to the environment, developers will also have to submit a mitigation plan that lays out the steps that they will take to mitigate the damage. Every waste generator shall segregate construction and demolition waste and deposit it at the collection center or hand it over to the authorized processing facilities. Local bodies will notify costs for the collection, transportation, processing and disposal of collected C&D waste, and these costs will have to be borne by those developing these projects or buildings. States and cities will have to allocate suitable sites for the storage, processing and recycling of C&D waste. Land use for these sites cannot be changed. Extremely important. Cities with a population of over 1 million will commission processing and disposal facilities within 18 months from the date of the final notification. The notifications already come. Cities with a population of half to 1 million and those with a population of less than half million will be given 2 to 3 years to set up these facilities. And cities will have to mandatorily reuse 20% of the waste in other construction projects. So that's very important. Bureau of Indian Standards BIS will prepare practices and standards for products made from this waste. So my question now next is to Anup. Anup, as a developer, what do you welcome these, or do you think that these are going to be another hurdle actually in these numerous approval processes that at least the real estate industry had to deal with?
So I agree that there is yet another regulatory requirement, but I think it is very necessary. If we don't take care of this at this stage, where India is at a very developing stage, and if we don't put these steps in place at this point of time, we could have some very serious consequences as we go forward. So though it would be another regulatory requirement, I think it should be something which the industry should also welcome as responsible entities as well.
All right. Mahesh Babu, as ILNFS, I mean the only plant in the country to be actually recycling solid waste in the country currently, tell me, you've gone through those rules. Are you excited, or do you think that these are implementable now that the notification has come through?
Yeah, Manisha, I think they are implementable. We have two plants now, one in Burari, and we have set up the second one in Shastri Park as well. Both of them together take care of about 2,500 tons of C&D waste. Yeah. But I think, the rules in themselves, in my opinion, the country has a huge amount of regulations, right? The issue really is one of implementation. And that is where I think we need to focus our attention. The rules provide a good launching pad, but I think its success is going to depend on our ability to actually implement these projects. So I think, as I mentioned, we have processed over 20 lakh tons of waste, which would have otherwise, as you had mentioned, gone to, the Yamuna or other eco-sensitive regions of Delhi, right? But for us, it has been a big struggle to set up the facility, to ensure that, we operate it and receive waste on a regular basis. The entire mechanism itself is still fairly cumbersome. And I think, if you want to set up these facilities, the government, especially the environmental departments, will have to play a role of a facilitator in addition to being a regulator, So if we want to set up a facility, you had mentioned in 18 months, right. Then I think the 18 months will have to be ensured, no?
Okay.
So, which means you need to get your clearances, you need to get everything done.
Shashank, that's the whole challenge, isn't it? So 18 months, fantastic timelines, and if there's a good intention, it should be done. But here we are talking about land getting allocated and then earmarked for this sort of a facility, landfills. Then you also have land to be allocated for a plant, segregation to happen. Municipal bodies, which are right now the nodal agency responsible for collecting waste, to actually do that work, do the segregation, and whether it's a developer, builder, working with MCD, but seriously, there has to be one agency which is responsible for all of this. And we know that MCDs aren't really the best equipped to handle this.
Well, I think they already have a big job at in their hands already. The implementation for this is going to be quite difficult. And it's even worse than that, because I think for such a policy to be successful, you need to look at not just the big builders, you need to look at not just the big constructors, you need to also look at people who are building their own homes. Statistics are not very easily available, but if you see the cement consumption statistics in India, more than 60% of cement goes to housing. And more than 90% of the cement consumed in India is in bags instead of bulkers that are used for big projects. So that means a lot of construction is actually happening in people's homes. A lot of this pollution that we're talking about is regular people building, constructing, demolishing their older homes, building new homes, building bigger flats. So that is still not properly regulated. A lot of pollution is happening because of that. There's air pollution also happening, water pollution, there's noise pollution because of that. A lot of waste is also getting generated because of that. People at the moment do not know what to do with this waste that is generated. There has to be a body that is dedicated to taking care of this waste, taking care of the waste that is generated during demolition, during construction, both the processes. There is no way that I can properly dispose of construction waste at the moment if I'm a home builder.
So builders are going to be responsible themselves, and I think that's Avikal, does that not close the loop? So even if it's small homes, if it's individuals demolishing it, well, that could be a smaller part of the market, but the largest part is something which the builders and large companies hold, isn't it?
Actually not. So a small builder might be very conscious about the whole thing and want to reuse the waste, but he might not be aware how to use it. He wants to deposit it safely, but he doesn't know where to deposit it, because there is no safe sites earmarked to do these things. And usually what happens is, like in my neighborhood, there's a construction happening and the person goes and deposits all this waste into the regular dhalao where all the other municipal waste comes in and gets mixed up, and it's actually a mess over there. So there's a need to identify these sites where smaller developers and builders can deposit this waste, and this has to be decentralized. It cannot be a single plant at Burari in Delhi or Shastri Nagar. It has to be everywhere around the city, whether in each neighborhood needs to have these collection and processing sites, and the idea has to be decentralized management of this waste, because it's generated decentralized.
Okay, Mahesh Babu, what's your response to that? That you can't just have a couple of plants or have a landfill site which is very far away from certain spots. That's going to be a big discouragement. How much can you really decentralize this activity of both landfills and setting up processing plants for waste management?
No, Manisha, in our case, for instance, in Burari or in the case of Shastri Park, we have, let us say, around 30 collection points in the case of North Delhi, and we have another 15 collection points in the case of East Delhi.
Okay.
So it is possible to decentralize it to the extent of, the collection points. But if, you're planning to set up a C&D waste processing facility in a decentralized manner, that unless there is sufficiently large amounts of C&D which are available, then the process does not become economically viable.
Let me get back to Anup Mathew. Anup Mathew, I mean, Godrej is actually a very responsible developer. Their buildings, just the following of all environment norms, etc., is extremely sensible. Sustainable practices are ingrained into the company's construction policies. Tell me, what have you been doing so far? What have been your actual on-ground challenges when it comes to construction and demolition waste?
Manisha, we, for a start, have been trying to ensure that segregation of waste which can be reused is something which is a practice which we put in all of our projects. So without that, I think it's a non-starter. So segregating waste is a prerequisite.
Right.
We have also implemented LEED principles in green building designs. So many of our buildings are green buildings. So when we try and design the building using certain specifications, we try and look at waste generation as a design aspect itself. So this helps us try to minimize the waste at source, and if at all it's possible, we try and use the waste for alternative purpose on the site itself or on any of another site where the same waste could be actually an input for the next site.
So you are reusing. So that's what Mr. Javadekar said. He said recover, recycle and reuse. Now let me come to the recover. We are hoping that everybody who's building will get responsible after the notification and will take it to either landfills or the collection centers. Now the big question is also reuse. Mahesh Babu, what I've heard is that the tiles which are getting manufactured out of some of the waste that you do recycle has no takers. Is that true? I mean, is that a big challenge as well, economic viability of reusing?
I don't see it, it's a challenge, of course, but having said that, there are now, people who are willing to consider these products. What was inhibiting the progress and sale of these products was the fact that there was no standards, and given the fact that this is a nascent sector, there was no acceptability of the products. Okay. But now, because, BIS has also put in place standards for recycled concrete aggregate, and also the Delhi government, for instance, constituted a committee consisting of PWD and all the other municipal authorities who have come up with standards for these products.
Shashank, do you think it's a viable solution? I mean, the waste is, as I know, crushed, washed, ready to mix. Concrete can be made out of it. Curbstones can be made out of cement bricks, pavement blocks. I mean, to me, it seems if a country like Denmark can recycle 80% of it and reuse it, we should get there.
Oh, definitely we should. We have a big potential in this area. It's the commercial viability at times that is a big issue. A lot of times we think that if something is recycled, it's going to be better for the environment, it's going to be cheaper. It's probably not. The issue with construction and demolition waste is that you have to aggregate it over such a large area that logistics becomes expensive at times. Then processing it, segregating it, all that makes that material a bit more expensive. Construction materials are so cheap. They're so low cost. They're even cheaper than the bottle of water that you buy in the market, despite the fact that you're consuming water and producing them.
Wow.
So because of their low cost, it's very difficult to bring in new technologies. Whatever new technology that you bring in has to be affordable for people, has to be cost effective. If you have regulations that force you to use 10% of a material which is more expensive than the regular material, we are probably not doing our jobs right. A part of our job is also to make sure that within the amount of resources and money we have, we are able to carry out as much construction as possible. As an engineer, I would not feel good towards my society if I give them less of an output for the same amount of money, just in the name of being able to reuse old materials.
So Shashank, my question to you is, isn't their technology good enough to actually make this competitive, price competitive?
I think we have to get the technology to a point where it becomes price competitive with materials of the same quality. So somebody who's buying a product that's produced from C&D waste should not be able to differentiate it from any other regular product in the market. It should have the same mark. Why should there be different standards for materials being recycled? When you buy a can of a cold drink, for example, if the aluminum in the can was recycled, would you be willing to accept a can that was of lower quality? You would not. You would expect the can to be of the same quality.
Okay. I get that. Mahesh Babu, so then back to you now. So is there a difference in the quality of recycled tiles, etc., curbstones which are being manufactured right now, and how are they priced? Go ahead.
Not at all. They're not different in quality. They meet the quality specifications. Point number one. Point number two is in terms of price. They are competitive with what is being sold in the market. And these are our, we have also now, as I mentioned, we are selling close to 16 lakh concrete bricks which are being used in the Supreme Court Annex C. We have also set up a road, a 5-kilometer road along with DDA and the Central Road Research Institute. Right. So I don't see a problem at all in producing quality using recycled products.
Okay. Well, if Singapore recycles 98% of its C&D waste, then I think those guys will not compromise on quality. So it's just quality shouldn't be a problem here. Last comment from you, Avikal. I mean, CSE is the first one which raises the flag.
We
Go ahead.
Mani, one quick submission. In our Shastri Park plant, we recycle close to 95%.
Okay, 95%. So in a plant, at least we've reached that figure. Whatever's collected, 95% can be recycled. Avikal, final word from you. I mean, CSC is literally the activist which is holding this country together, forcing the government to come out with policy. So you think this time, what's the gut feeling? That states will implement it? We will see something happening? I mean, really getting implemented on ground?
We are actually pretty surprised how quickly the things have moved. We picked up the issue in 2013 and 2016. Both the standards are amended now. CND waste is recognized as a possible substitute in cement and concrete. And now the rules are out. So it's up to the states to actually take it forward in cities to set up these plants and these facilities and management systems. And it's a very small start as such. India has just two plants, that too in Delhi. We have so many cities, hundreds of towns where everything has to go. There's a lot of capacity building which will be required, a lot of technical assistance which these cities will need. There will be a lot of financial assistance which will be required from these cities, and where this money will come from, where the technical expertise will come from. All things need to be answered and actually worked upon.
Yes.
This is the next step. So
let's hope so. I mean, Swachh Bharat, all these are great ideas. Smart city. Now we have new notifications for, construction and demolition waste. But this is just the beginning and just a start. I mean, implementation is the key. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. We'll keep this debate alive, keep the discussion, come back, revisit after 6 months to see how many states have actually adopted it. Has there been any capacity building at municipal level? Landfills been allotted by different cities? They have to do it within 18 months, and here on the Property Show, we will keep a close track.